All right, welcome back, everybody. I know it's been a little bit since we've had a sit down with this map. One thing I'm going to be perfectly honest right now, I am a little under the weather. I do have a slight cold, so you might hear a little bit of sniffling or me clearing my throat. For that, I apologize. However, that won't stop us from doing what we're doing today. So where we last left off was we were looking at this map here, this little abandoned home, and we were sort of looking through the 5 rooms to a dungeon, as I was sort of looking at that as using my basis for doing these live streams with you guys. So the first room, obviously for any dungeon, is going to be a entrance with a guardian. So at this point, your players should be coming up upon an area that, for some reason or another, nobody else is going by or nobody else is near. And it's going to be up to you as the DM to decide exactly how to incorporate that. So I leave this to your imagination and do this however you want. But let's just say for simplicity's sake that this used to be an old mining house, and the people no longer live here because they've either been killed, as you can see is by the bodies down here, or they've been taken deep into the mines down here. Now, I've got a few new tricks up my sleeve here to show you guys, so without further ado, let's go to it. So the first thing we're going to be doing is going down to our layers and levels tab here first, and we're going to go over to levels, and now that's going to show me exactly a breakdown of all the different tiers sort of for this map. So this is a pretty simple house, 1 level. So what I actually want to do is come over here and actually create a new layer on top, and that's going to populate this. So I'm going to name this just roof. Hit enter so it takes it. Perfect. Now you'll happen to notice that everything that we just did is gone. Well, that's because the stage is being shown. But if I just click off of that, boink, there we go. Everything that I just worked on is now completely visible, so now I can build on top of it or below it. So all I really want to do is just build some roofs. So I'm going to go over to my shape tool here, and let's see, do I have a good roof section here? I have been working on some other maps, so it has all those assets loaded in as well. I think we're going to have to, no, yeah, that'll work. Perfect. All right, so we're just going to come over here then, and you can do this a couple of ways. You can draw them sort of triangular like that. And then you can draw a straight line down like so. So what this is doing is this is kind of creating, should have gone the whole way around. So actually what I'm going to do is, I don't really like how this looks, so I'm just going to Control Z and Control Z again so that I can actually do this the way I want to with a nice slit down the middle like so, and another one down here like that, like that, like that. So ideally how you'll be looking at this is you've got sort of roofs coming onto an apex point right at the center like that. We have the outhouse over here, which we can just have, we can do the same sort of thing by just having lines drawn to the center, so any rain or anything that happens to hit this shed will just shear right off of it like that. Let me see how things are going here. All right, well, not a big deal. I'm sure other people will join us soon enough. Anyway, moving on. Now we'll just make things simple, and we'll just have this all be the same sort of roof tile set for now. And we can have that come up like so. Actually, we can even have this come over here like that, creating sort of a secondary layer, as you can see, created by the shadow. So over here, you can see above the walls, outline, inner and outer shadow for any shape texture. That just allows you to actually show how these lines are going to be interacting with each other and how your objects are going to be interacting with the things that you're placing them on top of. So really, if you don't like the way that that looks, and I really don't, so we're just going to get rid of that and maybe just have one come up down the center like that. So perfect. So if I want some inner shadows on that, I can always just go to my select tool, click on the shape texture there, and then I can have the inner shadows taken away or there, and I can get rid of the outer shadows as well, but I want to keep the outer shadows to show that it is indeed a roof above. So that's pretty straightforward, right? We're going to save that, of course. And without much further ado, I really don't think there's anything else I want to do on the top level here. As you can see, I'm just sort of panning around just to make sure that everything looks okay. Over here, I had my chimney. As you can see, there's another chimney, right? You can see where the outline of the chimney is there. Unfortunately, there's no just chimney asset. So unfortunately, it's going to have to just stay as is. But when you actually go back to your levels and layer tab, you can go down to levels, go back down to the ground floor. Now you see this? Look at this. I can actually see the layer above where I've drawn. So if that's sort of creating a bit of an obscure view and you don't like it and your players are finding it hard to actually navigate around your map, you can actually go back to your levels and layers, go back to your levels section, and actually choose and select this eye icon right here, and it gets rid of it. So now it's still present, but it's just hidden from view. And then you can always just click on that tab again to get rid of it and get back to your view. And if you want to see how the whole map goes, go to your zoom page, zoom all, and there you go. You have a nice little overview of the map we've done. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not what you have come here to see. You have actually come to see us actually build this dungeon outright. So we are going to save this. I'm going to go back to the levels and layers again. And we're actually going to go underneath the ground level. Dunk. And this will be mines level 1. Perfect. We'll enter to take that. Now you see there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. I can see the other layer above, but I don't like the fact that it's all shaded green. So we're just going to get rid of that show stage. And now I've got a better look of everything here, so I'm going to see exactly how everything plans and pans out. Now this is where your dungeon's going to take a little bit more precision with knowing where things are oriented so that you can build it out appropriately. If for some reason you don't like what you're seeing, we'll go underground because we're building underground. If you don't like what you're seeing, you can always just choose to hide that as well, and you've got sort of a blank canvas to work with. You can also, if you want, you can go over to your stage, you can show stage, and you can actually change the floor. So you can change the texture to whatever you want. So let's say you want it, let's go to our assets here and we'll go over to textures. We can actually choose a black background. And then when we go to textures over here, it's somewhere here. Black rug, no, black styles, black, boom. So now, maybe this might be a little bit easier for us to work in if we don't feel like actually building out something reflective of the level we're working on before. But remember, you can always click off show stage and you can always go back to your levels and layers and actually reveal what you've just done, just in case you want that point of reference. The only real thing I'm concerned with is right over here, just the entrance to the mines. Everything else I'll worry about as we build it out. So I'll actually hide that, go back to my show stage so I can see this, and let's get to building. So the second stage of any dungeon, or the second room, rather, of any dungeon, is going to be a puzzle or role-playing challenge. Now, all this really is just an area for your players to actually try to navigate through something dangerous, or for them to try to actually do a little bit of role-playing to get them out of a jam or puzzle. So we had our entrance, just so I get my point of reference, perfect, right about here-ish down here. So what I can do is we'll go to our wall. Under this wall tab here, I'm going to want cave instead. Walls, how do I want my walls to look? Where's my natural stone? Solid dark stone? That's good enough for what we're doing. I don't have to go all crazy here. And the floor, I do want this though. Textures. And we'll go to, not styles, not backgrounds, stone. Perfect. And then let's maybe go, not natural stone, dirt with rocks and stone. I like that. Perfect. Okay, so back onto our map here. And then now we can start being a little bit crazy with how we want everything to look. So again, I'm just going to go back to my levels and layers, pop this open here. Perfect. So my mine entrance is going to be on sort of this line here. Now I'm just going to create a sort of a point there for a point of reference. Perfect. So I don't have to keep that, but I kind of know generally the area I'm working with. So what I will do is Let's just kind of build out. So how I'm thinking this is going to be is just sort of like a mines area. So to the first level of the mines that maybe will splinter off into some dead ends, maybe a couple of traps set by maybe the goblins that live here, but also near the end of it, a little bit of foreshadowing of what the players are going to be interacting with and coming up against as far as challenges go later on in the dungeon. So really all we have to do is just sort of build out. And you can see it's starting to populate here a little bit as we go. So I'm just going to create sort of a weird generic outline. Nothing too crazy. Again, I can fix this up as I need and or want to. And then we'll just trace back over my original line. Boom! Yikes! That is not what I want. So we're going to get rid of all this, all this, all this. Is it your natural stone? Natural stone, where is it? Where are you? Not grass, oh, gravel, there we go. Bunk. Ah, perfect. All right, so we had our mine entrance sort of down here. So let's actually expand this down here. And all I'm doing is I'm just grabbing, when you select a dungeon, you see all the anchor points that you've made. All I'm doing is tagging the specific anchor point and then just adjusting it as I need to. I can make it come all the way here so it's level, lined up, and like so. And you'll actually notice here, I'll just show you very quickly. We'll go 150, defaults to 100. So you can actually see it's a bit of a beveled edge around the map edge here where all the lines are, and that's because I chose the cave wall. Now this was a new feature they added a few patches ago where you actually can get sort of a jagged edge. Now there's a lot of different customization with your walls that you can do here, but for our intents and purposes we're just going to make this nice and quick and easy. So we'll have coming off of this wall here maybe something like that. We'll start with a tunnel shaft coming this way. That'll go line up like that. That's a rather thin wall. Okay, well, we won't worry about that right now. And then maybe it'll go up this way, up this way, up this way. So I'm basically going to have it so that that's running like that. And we'll have it come up this way, like so, like so. So all I'm really doing right now is just sort of tracing out where I want sort of tracks to lead up to. And then what we can do is I'll just trace back over these lines so it doesn't fill in the gap that I've made with area that I don't want, but it will trace out the walls. Like, oh, too far. Like that. Almost. Perfect. So you may notice that these walls aren't very thick. Well, that's because not only did I change them to the cave walls for the outside, but when I came up to my area here and I actually clicked on the stage, you can change the intensity if you want. Get rid of that because I don't need it. I actually had this underground. So what's going to happen is these walls here are actually going to appear a lot thinner than what they normally would because the level itself is underground. So it's more just giving an impression that these are not really thicker walls to be sort of traversed against. But anyway, I want to go to my levels and layers again for a second here. Levels and layers. And show my ground level there for a second. Perfect. So maybe let's get some stairs over here. So stairs, what do I have preloaded as far as stairs go? Nothing. Perfect. Go to my asset library, props, stairs. And again, I'm just sticking with the fantasy setting because that's all I'm really concerned with right now. And we'll have stairs going down and stairs going up too. Why not? So this is where I get to show you something cool that the creator of Dungeon Fog, Till, showed me. So when you have an asset selected here, or any asset selected on the map, you can actually hold Shift and use the scroll wheel to reorient it if you want. Or, if you want, you can hold Control, and then you actually increase the size. Now, you can't do them simultaneously. It does override one or the other, but let's just say we want some stairs down like that, and maybe have it coming off of the wall sort of like this. So we'll have a double set of stairs coming down like that. So they would come down the entrance to the mine here, which, as we have on the previous level, is right about there. So not entirely lined up, but that's okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this over to here like that and line it up like so. Perfect. Awesome. I love it. Save it. All right. What else are we going to do here? Water. Water is good. Let's actually throw a mine stop in here. So if I just go to mine stop. Dunk. So essentially what this is going to be is this is going to be sort of an indication of where we want our mines to end. And then what you can do as well is if you want, you can sort of create a little wall here and just throw a passage up for your players, just so that they know that there's a wall here, but this is where the mine stops, so the cart rails themselves will end here. And let's go back to our assets, and we'll bring up our rails. All right, so we got a bunch of different rail types here. So we're going to go straight rails. We'll have them go straight, but we'll have this be fairly large because I only want each square distance on this surface to be about maybe 5 feet or so. Now, the great thing about this program is when you first set up a map, it's actually going to ask you what you want each block or gap square to consist of, and as far as distance goes. So I have set this up as each square being about 5 feet by 5 feet. But that doesn't mean that you have to stick to that. You can actually adjust, if you want, the lengths of each grid space as you progress through the dungeon. Heck, you can even have 2 different lengths of grid space on the same map if you want to. You're not bound by that. It's just sort of if you're new to map making or you're new to DMing, it's sort of a baseline that you can operate with. I don't like the size of that, so we're going to make it a touch bigger. So this is actually going to be like 15 lengths of track, which is actually pretty long. Now this is where lining up things is going to be a little tricky, so I think I'm going to want to zoom in a little bit more than that. Let's go 120. Perfect. Get my rails. And the great thing about this, using the control feature, is that you can eyeball it a lot easier rather than going back to my magical 50% that I went to on our last stream. This makes things a little bit easier. You can get a better gauge of the space just by lining them up on top of each other like that. So we'll just plunk another one down here like that. Like that. Aha! See, now we're running into some issues here about how do I get around here. Well, with a little bit of reorientation like so, increasing the size. We'll bring some track back over top just a little bit. Maybe about there. Eep. Not lined up completely. How about that? It's a little off, but with a little bit of adjustment, you can get them sitting on top of each other almost perfectly. Now, the only reason they're not perfect is just because the way the assets are lined up and designed, but you know, you try your best. You hope for the best. All right, let's get that curve back again here. 1 second. Curve. No. Rail. Curving rails. Perfect. And see, that's a little bit better. It hugs the wall just a bit there. So what I can do is let's just go down here and we'll just sort of move that wall back like that. Beautiful. Saved it. You'll notice that maybe a couple times whenever I'm saving the map, the previous layer will pop up on top. That's just a technical... Yeah, I just saw it on the stream there. That's just a technical glitch. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just trying to get the word out on the stream here. All right, back to map making. All right, so we got that. We'll go back, get our rails again. Yeah, so we'll go with that. Now, sometimes this feature, the shifting and control, may not be the best. If you already know kind of what angle you need to hit, sometimes it's best to just go up to your rotation here and actually just hit that exact angle. But you know, it's not a big deal if you don't. And we'll just rotate that a bit here because we're coming up on a bit of a 45. And it's just a touch off. Better. Perfect. And again, if you don't like how close it's coming to the walls, just move them. Dunk. Now it's okay if we have a lot more open space up here. That's not the end of the world. Really, we can just fix that up after we sort of lay the groundwork for our rail system. We can always go back and just add more walls in. But what I kind of want to do is I want to sort of maybe make a room in here, sort of like maybe a living quarters or mining, or actually a mining node area. So what I'm going to do is go back to my rails again. Rails straight, but a 45-degree angle. Now they always work in sets of 10 as far as their rotation goes. So if it's just off a bit, I can always just go back and kind of hit a little bit more about where I want to be. It's not exact, but close enough. They weren't the best miners. That's why they don't live. That's why they're not alive anymore. Yeah, like that. Ooh, yeah, some broken rails. Perfect. And then these will go ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Chunk. Chunk. And then we'll put one more rails straight down here coming on a 45, and then throw that down there, and then we'll put another mine stop. We'll throw a cart in there as well. We'll throw that on the tracks like so. And then we'll put another mine stop there. Now there's a better one to use here. Rail stop. That's what I want. Perfect. Then we'll just scale that down just a touch. Like that. Now, if you don't like these walls either, which... now that I think of it, I might not be the biggest fan of. All right, if something doesn't want to cooperate on the map, what you can do is you can always go back to your levels and layers, and actually go back to your layers. And then you can actually select the room itself, go to your content, and it actually brings up a list of everything you have down here. All the content and everything. So you can actually select which one specifically you're looking for and then highlight that one like right there and then make all your necessary changes to it. Let's see. Let's get a brush going on here. I want it slightly darker in here, so I'm going to go and actually grab a different texture here. Just 1 second. Get rid of that. Let's search by stone again. Old rocks. Why not? Why not? Go up here, change it over to texture. You can even search, so we can go old rock if you know the name of what you're looking for. Pops up right there. Tag that, bring back over here. I'll bring the softness down and I'll bring the thickness up. Now, because I drew these maps or these walls a little bit differently, they don't show up quite the same way. As you can see on the previous map, there was no spillage if I accidentally went over the lines. Here there is. I'm not overly concerned about that because it's an underground sort of mine area. Having a little bit of overflow might not be such a bad idea. But if it does bother you that much, again, you can always download this map for yourself and make any necessary changes. All I'm doing is sort of just creating an area where I think some mining would be. Like so. Perfect. Come up right to that line there, come straight across. Something a little bit like that. But I'm no artist either. Okay, save that, of course. And let's start getting some mining shiz going on here. So let's get some stalag. And actually, we're going to just randomize the rotation on this because it doesn't really bother me that much. Now, the cool thing is that if I wanted to, let's say I accidentally click off an item or something like that, I can actually come over to an object I've already placed. I can Control D to duplicate it, and then it recreates exactly what I'm looking for. So if I want to create that specific layout again, I can just Control D and then Control D like so. But since I want to keep my rotation random, we'll bring back my stalagmites. Bring the scale down just a bit, and my rotation, I'll keep it going. So all this really is more like rock face that maybe has been cut apart. Oh, excuse me. Like I said, not 100%, not feeling the greatest. So my apologies if there's any missteps in my enthusiasm this evening. That is not a fault of spending it with you guys. That is just a fault of my being sick and going outside without a coat on because I'm a genius like that. Aha! Perfect. I got a little bit of ore there. Oh, right. It's not listed under ores. It's listed under ore. Actually, give me a second here. Much better. Perfect. Again, we'll keep the rotation random. No shadows. And we'll just scroll down the size a little bit here. Ah, here's something cool. This is something I'll actually get to show you guys. I didn't want to do it quite yet, but since I've grabbed some glowing crystals, you'll actually be able to see a bit of how this works. Now, I'm not going to delve into this too much right now. Maybe in a final episode, once the dungeon's finished, I'll go back and sort of gleam over everything. Get rid of some of these I don't want. But you'll notice how all of a sudden all the area here got lit up, and that sort of luminosity sort of ebbed out onto the floor here, as well as the stalagmites behind it. Well, very, very recently, the Dungeon Fog creative team have implemented what's called dynamic lighting. Now, dynamic lighting allows you to take any object and turn it into a light source interacting with everything else behind it. So if you happen to see here, we'll come down to our little light icon, and next thing you know, all of a sudden the light source is enabled. Now, if I don't want this to be a light source, all I have to do is just click off of it and then it goes away. But if I did want to play around with its hue, its saturation, or its luminosity, I can do so. So you can change its color, how evident and prominent that color is, and also how much light that gives off. You can also change its range, and also what, like there's hundreds of, like there's a lot of different customization available. Like you could spend hours and hours on a single map just playing around with all the little different features. And I'll give you a bit of a taste in this series, but really I just kind of want to go through and show you how easy it is to build a map. But you can have the light receiver cast shadow. So anything that's being affected by the light object will now cast a shadow. You can change how that shadow is going to look as far as its length goes. You can also change what kind of shadow it's actually gonna cast. So you can have it casting, you can have it lay flat, you can actually have it flat with no prop shadows, and there's also no light receiver. Now you're gonna want to have that, like it's sort of a dynamic relationship, right? Hence dynamic lighting. So I actually don't want that to cast a shadow. Actually, no, cast a shadow. Yeah, so you can see how it's sort of changing a little bit in and around here every time I click off that. So we're going to actually click off that, but I'm going to click on this, and we'll have that cast a shadow. You can change its shadow length. And then you can change all of its, you can also change the ambient lighting. Whoop, whoop. So if you want to make it really, really dark and spooky down here, you can change it like that. Or in the stage lighting as well. Now, because it's inside of a room, the stage lighting itself won't be affected because it's all black, but everything that's not being revealed by the or everything that is revealed, I should say, that you can change around with the ambient room lighting. But I'm not going to do anything with lighting, at least not for this episode, maybe probably not even for this series. Maybe closer to the end, we'll go through a room and we'll dynamically light it together. But for all intents and purposes right now, I don't really want to do anything like that because I'm really just kind of trying to burn through and show you guys exactly how to build a dungeon. But know that it is there for you to customize and play around with. Anything that is lit or glowing in the asset category will automatically be enabled as a light source. So any lit torches, any lights, if you're playing on the modern or sci-fi asset packs, or if you're using any torches or ores like I am, and you can see everything is sort of changed back. Now, the level settings are still there just because I'm still playing around with it and have that go away. And there we are, sort of just an initial mining area. Maybe have this come out just a touch farther than what it is right now. But not by much. Actually, we can even have it so that it's a little bit gradient by increasing the softness, turning down the opacity, and you can see now it's still there, but a little bit lesser. So that's a great way to actually have multiple textures sitting on top of each other, and also kind of eliminates the obviousnness of the spillover if you accidentally go outside the lines like that. So we'll just kind of maybe keep going it. And then if you go over top of it several times, obviously it stacks sort of, and it just appears a little bit more, a little bit thicker than usual, or than when you first put it down, but that's okay. Perfect. So we got a sort of first little mining room right here, ready to go. Our entrance down here, a little passage leading to the mine stop, a cart there. What we can do as well is we can throw in a little bit of, let's grab some sacks of ore. keeping my random rotation on, but I'll decrease the size quite a bit. And I'll also have like a bunch of bags of ores stacked on top of each other like that. So they haven't finished digging everything out, but they made a pretty good chunk, because who's to say that there weren't some coming in this way? All right. Everybody with me so far? Fantastic. Perfect. Still have a little bit left to go, but not much. Next thing we're going to do is rails. We're going to bring back our rails, only this time I want a T crossing, because I actually want it to come up like so, where the rails themselves are actually going to splinter off this way. So we'll have it sitting right on top of this rail section like so, like that. Get off my random rotation, and then we'll have coming up this way, this way. We'll have this come right to the end, and what we can do is we'll actually just splinter off this sort of main rail line. So we'll put this there like that, and we'll grab our rail stop again. We'll shrink it down like so. We can even have another mine cart. Maybe this one's filled with ore this time. Shrink it just a touch so the wheels are actually in line with the rails themselves, like that. Oh my goodness, excuse me. I am so sorry. All right. I think we're doing pretty good so far. And what do we got here? What do we have? What do we want to do? Maybe let's have another T-junction, actually. Rails. Rail T-crossing. We'll have this shoot off like so. And then we'll have another one spin it around like that. And we'll have it maybe offshoot like that. Perfect. I like it. I like it very much. And of course some broken rails. Broken rails. Curving rails like so. As long as one of them's lined up, that's kind of all that matters. And then we'll put another rail stop here. Now the only reason that you would ever want to offshoot like this is maybe if you're loading up some sort of a forge area. Actually, you know what? Haha, I love it. We're going to do a forge area. We're actually going to have normal walls for this one. I'll come down like this, cut across there like that, up here, like that. Perfect. So we're going to create a single door like so, down here. And we'll put down another cart. Only this one's going to be a broken mine cart. Dun dun dun. Oh, come on. There we go. Now, since we're going to use that as a forge area, we actually have to go and get one. So, forge, like that. We need some anvils. Anvil. Maybe pickaxe. Barrels of water, I already have those, so I think we're okay there. Maybe let's go with, save it. Actually, let's just start putting things together and seeing how everything lines up. So let's just get our forge. We'll set it up at the back of the room like so, bearing in mind that each one is 5 feet, so a 5-foot forge ought to be enough. And you can see it's a light source as well because it has a fire. So we're actually going to play with this just a touch, just to give you guys a bit of a taste. Because I built this up as a room, we're going to have the ambient room light just a little touch darker. That seems to be affecting the whole room. That's fine. That's good enough. Just a little bit darker. Not by much, though. And then we'll get a couple of water barrels. Like so. Like so. And one there beside the forge. One there beside the forge. And then we'll have an anvil. A lot smaller. So that when they hit it, dunk, they could put it in the water right away. And then whack the bellows on it. We'll get a table. I don't have a good table here. 1 second. That's a good table. This is a nice little square table. We'll shrink that down just a touch. We'll put a couple of tables back here. And one over here like this. Grab some pick axes. We'll have the rotation random, but I'll scale the size right down so they're about the length of the table itself. Like that. Perfect. Now the way that the assets work is they work on layers, as I've maybe shown you in the past. Now what I've done as well is to ensure that something sits above something else, I usually put it above the walls. That's not necessarily the case. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. What you can do is, say for example, this I want one of these pickaxes maybe underneath the table. Well, what I actually can do is go to my my layers tab, go to my, see this pickaxe here that's highlighted? I can actually change where I want that to be oriented, and I can actually put it underneath the square table. So now it's hidden from view, as you can see down there, or I can tag it and put it back on top. So if for some reason you happen to either not be able to find or locate an asset because it's hidden under an object, or if you actually, for flavor's sake, want to put an asset underneath somewhere, then all you have to do is, if you can't seem to find it or have a hard time selecting it, come to this tab instead, and then you'll actually be able to pick the exact asset you want and be good to go. We're going to save it again, of course, because it's always a good idea to save when you're working on stuff. Maybe another little, maybe we've got a little forge area, which I'm not quite done with yet, but maybe we'll have, one of my other maps had this, and I really liked it. So we're going to come up over here. We're going to grab rails again. Straight rails like this. Get off my random rotation. Rails like that. Ooh, no. So they're just a bit off. So if I just go 180 exactly. Perfect. That's what I want. Again, my apologies for the sniffling and the coughing. Put that there. Get a minecart. Have this be an empty one so it fits the rails. Don't worry, I'm going to fix this up because I have an idea of what I want to do here. So the wall thickness is pretty thick, but that's okay. We're going to select this. We're going to go cave. And we'll go cave. So any walls that you draw inside, it seems, with the cave featured, like any outside walls is fine, but any inside interior walls tend to get a little bit cropped out. But that's okay. I can always go back and fix these. What I want to do right now is just sort of get the room put together and built, and then we can always go back and fix things up, or again, you guys can fix these up. I really encourage you to download this map and just sort of play around with all the different features as well. And then again, using the social share, you can let me know what you guys come up with. So I'd love to see what you guys are cooking up as far as these dungeons go, and you can always shoot me a Twitter, post them on my Facebook page, let me know what's going on. You can even, if you decide to do your own YouTube video on this, let me check it out. Let me see what you guys are doing. I'd love to see what you guys come up with as far as these maps go. So what we want to do now is we want to get some water. I don't like that particular water texture, so we're going to come over here back to my textures, go to water specifically, so I can see all the different ones here. Definitely that one, maybe that one, and maybe this one, but I doubt I'll use it. I definitely want the green water though, for sure. Thickness low, opacity high, and softness low, because I want this to be really prevalent. I want this to overtake the area that we've done already. Again, a little bit of, oh no, it actually covers it up pretty nicely. Perfect. Excellent. A little bit of spillage, but oh well, I'm willing to deal. We'll get maybe a nice shoreline. Well, shoreline. Nice. Bring the softness down a lot, but we'll make the opacity also really low, so you can just barely make it out. Kind of like that right down there. Maybe a little bit higher so you can actually see the line itself that it's making. Perfect. A little bit underneath the water too. Excellent. And then we need mushrooms. Mushrooms. Oh, perfect. I already snagged them. Right, this way. Mush. Glowing mushrooms, blue mushrooms, white mushrooms. Rotation will be random. Scale down the size. We'll have some mushrooms there. We'll have some blue mushrooms over here. So maybe they stumbled on a kobold mushroom farm and they didn't really take too kindly to it. But it was only until after significant increase in numbers that they were able to actually overtake people. Because maybe the father or mother, or whatever the family orientation is. I mean, we are the 21st century. I mean, even if these people aren't. Whatever your family orientation is and family makeup is, who's to say that nobody else can fight in the family? So maybe the kids are well adept at fighting and whatnot. So it's not to say that it's impossible for that to happen. Right. Get rid of that. I knew there was another light source down here. Ha ha ha. Maybe one more wall. Actually, you know what? We'll have it so that it's connected, and then we'll create a passage in here. Again, I want this to be a cave wall. Yeah. So we're doing good so far. Ooh, wow, even 200 range. 150 range? Yeah, good enough. The range is just changing how far the light source goes. So I believe it's set up in pixels, if I'm not mistaken, or like small units. So if you want to have your light source like take up an entire room, a single light source can illuminate an entire room if you want it to. If you don't, then I wouldn't, I would recommend not doing it that way. Little food area, little mining section, a little forge area, which isn't quite done yet. There's a lot of gap here, and really what you can do is, if you're not sure what to do, especially if you're doing the underground stuff, we can go with our big stalagmites again, and just so have it so that they're filling up some area. Now, you don't have to go with 100% map utilization. You can have some dead zone. But what we can do as well is, I've got a great idea for what we can do. Yes, I know you're going to pop up as normal walls. We're going to fix that. Cave. We're going to put... Do they have it? Yes, they do have a campfire. Excellent. So actually, what we're going to have is actually a little camp area here. Now, it's possible that a group of adventurers came by this way to look for them and have set an initial base camp here, a place where they can repair their gear, get a little bit of something to eat, have a nice little sort of safe haven that they've maybe carved out or discovered and stumbled upon before heading back into deeper into the mines proper, but still on the main level, so they're relatively close to the surface, so if they're in over their heads, they can make a hasty retreat. What I will do next is I'm going to grab bed, because I want bed rolls. My apologies if you hear my phone beeping. A couple of open and closed, so we'll grab bedroll specifically. Scale that way down. Start off with that. We'll have one here, one here, one there like that, one there like that, one there like that. But they didn't get the whole thing out, so we'll bring back small ones, scroll those down. So they didn't get them all, so maybe they're sitting in sort of a deeply nestled cave area. And who knows, maybe they're not even looking for the people that may have gone missing. Maybe they're just looking for treasure deeper in the caverns below, and you actually will have to engage with them and take them out. Again, this is your map too, and you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. You don't even have to take my suggestions, but it's nice if we kind of build something like this together a little bit. What we will do now is we'll go torch, scroll that down. This I want above the walls like that. So they definitely plunked a torch down there. Like that. Like that. Again, I'm not going with lit ones just because of the forge that's there. But you can always swap them out and change them with lit ones. Again, just remember, if you put anything that's already pre-lit, it's going to generate a light source, and you'll just have to either disable that or play with the settings as you go. I'm just doing a quick scan here just to see how things are looking. We've got sort of a general mining area. I don't really need to do a living area on this section just because we're so close to the surface still. You know what? I am going to bring the ambient room lighting down just a touch. We're going to go back down here. We're going to bring the ambient room lighting to about maybe there, like 50, 55. So now you've just created it so that those with low light vision or dark vision have an easier time seeing what's coming down the pipe, but maybe those who don't have dark vision, maybe they're not able to see quite as far. So it's actually the dynamic lighting is a great way to play around with characters who do and do not have dark vision as well. And what we will do now is we will grab, I'm going to go and grab, do I have the cave in? I do have the cave in. Perfect. So we're going to just scale this down here. Oops, I don't want it above the walls. Going to go back and tag these guys. Down you go. Down you go. Back to my cave in. Like that. Scale it down a bit. Like that. So that's a whole section of the mine there that maybe collapsed for whatever reason. Actually, we're going to get rid of some of those. Like that. And like that. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go brush. We're going to go back to my brush textures, go back to color, tag my black that I like to use. And we're going to whack up the opacity again, keeping the thickness and softness down. And what we're actually going to do is we're just going to paint all inside like this. To kind of show that this is the next entrance to the next level of the mines. And what we can even do if we want, do I want to? No, actually, I don't think I do. I don't want to do that. See, what I was going to do is I was going to put another set of rails up here, but I don't entirely think I want to do that. So I might just leave it as such. And remember how I said we weren't going to play around with lighting? Well, I lied. We're going to do it. We're going to do it a little bit just because we've already started up here and I'd maybe like to see how this is going to interact with everything. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to create, what we're going to use though is we're going to use the glowing ore again. We'll use some glowing mushrooms just to sort of act as accent light. But we can actually use some glowing crystal ore as well, keeping the rotation random. We'll scale it down just a touch. And maybe all the luminescent ore has already been carved out, so all we're left is with gemstones that don't glow, with the exception of maybe that up there, that down there. A little bit over here. Again, just bearing in mind that this is where the entrance is, so I don't know if I really want to put... Oh, no, we can. Yeah, we will. We'll put some there. Put some there like that. Maybe a tiny little piece here, sort of a remnant like that. And glowing mushroom. What we're going to do is I'm going to have this act as like a glowing algae. So I'm actually going to take this, I'm going to plunk it down in the water, but because it's a mushroom, and mushrooms don't really grow in water all that well, you can actually change the alpha here. And what this will do is this will actually affect the transparency of the object you're working on. So if I still want this to cast that kind of a light, without playing around with all the hue and coloring, because that's a lot more editing than I really think we have time for, what I can do is I can just take the alpha and I'm just going to make it basically invisible. Well, it is invincible if it's invisible, unless you're fighting an invisible stalker. But anyway, now it's basically transparent, but I still get the glow being cast off of the object itself, and I like that. So we're going to have these objects cast a shadow, cast a shadow, cast a shadow, and we're going to increase the range maybe to 150 and just see how far that goes. No, we're going to whack that down to like 70. Cast a shadow. Cast a shadow. And you can see how the shadows are being affected now by the light that I'm creating here. So everything in here is just going to kind of create and cast a shadow. Meanwhile, this is going to have its range up to maybe 130. Just give it a little bit more oomph. Casting a shadow, casting a shadow. So anything just sort of in that front layer, I'm going to have it cast a shadow. So you can actually see now that it's casting shadows. It's actually creating a bit of a sort of a layered depth of darkness, I suppose, for lack of better terminology. You can also change its length as well, so we can have the shadows go a little bit extra longer, but I don't want it to go that way, so we'll have it defaulted back to 100. Again, I'm just sort of playing around a little bit here. This isn't anything that I'm going to adhere to necessarily, but at least for the time being, for what I'm doing with it, this is going to be enough. All right. Range here. Range is going to be 300. Boom! Like that. See, 100 seems to be a pretty good setting. It's not too far, but just far enough. Oops. Put that back where it goes. My hand slipped. Again, my apologies, runny nose. I've already been streaming for an hour. That's impressive. I didn't think I'd be streaming for this long. Well, time flies when you're having fun and you're playing around with dynamic lighting. Honestly, you could probably spend literal hours just doing lighting alone. So all I'm really doing is just casting shadows, so at least the first layer here is all lit up, and then it's just throwing its shadows back. So I don't have to worry about casting shadows like 2 or 3 rows deep in this section, but at least as long as the first row more or less is casting shadows across all their objects, then it's just going to throw those shadows back. And again, you can just whack those up all the way to max if you want. Oh yeah, another cool feature with walls as well is you can have them act as being able to block light. So if I didn't want this forge to have its light spilling out onto the area outside, I can actually have the walls act as a barrier. Now not only that, but you can see how if I put something here, the light actually curves around the wall itself. So if I click on my, if I deselected that, see how the light just sort of cascades around it, but it doesn't, you don't get that shadow effect. If I were to make it so that my entire dungeon area here blocks the light, well, now you're getting a cutoff here, and now you're creating, even though you can't really see it that well, I'll zoom in a bit more on it. It's going to default to 100 anyway. 150. So you can even see how right down in here, this section of the wall is cutting off the light source and creating a nice little triangular shadow down there. So there's a lot of room for customization and whatnot on this. So I mean, I really encourage you guys to check this out and show me how you're utilizing the dynamic lighting, because it's a really, really phenomenal tool. Especially when you see things like over here with the light being just thrown everywhere. excuse me.